Welcome in, gang. Coach is super pumped to have you for this one. We're doing an absolute banger. Coach is talking, he's already given you the NBA Finals pick, but we're going to talk about how that ties in to our new World Cup pick, Stanley Cup pick, Final Four picks. Coach is doing it all, right? This one's going to be an absolute banger. Now, Coach does want to start with something like slightly negative, but hopefully it doesn't get derailed. Coach always flames the trolls, right? So we have a bunch of new subscribers. And I've been getting some great comments, right? So I know not everybody knows exactly what Coach is about. So please don't be afraid to share your thoughts. Coach is down with pretty much any theory, even if he thinks it's goofy, right? He might make fun of you a little bit, but it's all in good fun for the most part, right? But here, this person decided to pop up. It says 51 because they haven't reached their 52nd birthday. It clearly says it founded on June 4th, right? Right there. That's the word where you set Coach off. Clearly? Well, if it clearly said it, you really think Coach missed it? The guy that read a mountain of books this year and has 800 videos, if you're so freaking smart, you can show Coach up, right? Popping up out of nowhere, 800 videos late on some quick to talk, slow to listen shit, right? If you're so fucking smart, where are your videos, right? So that shit's annoying. Coach doesn't mind being corrected, but don't talk down to me, right? Especially when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Coach already blew this video possibly hitting the algorithm because he swore, and I don't care. It was worth it for you. Snake, serpent, right? So that's that. Now, Bill Belichick missed the Hall of Fame. We've got him coming back to coach the Browns. I think it's perfect because of, obviously what you would see, right, as far as how that would fit in with the Browns. But as far as it fitting in with the Sixers, we got Melo coming out of retirement, out of the Hall of Fame. Like, I don't want the player and the coach doing the exact same thing. I like Belichick missing the Hall of, you know what I mean? Like, Melo gets all the narrative there, right? But really, Belichick did the exact same thing. He just didn't get the votes, which is a ridiculous story because if anything, you would think way less of Melo missing the Hall of Fame than Belichick. Melo never even won. I'm all for Melo in the Hall of Fame, but come on, over Belichick? I know it's not the same Hall of Fame, but what are we talking about? Right, so, of course, McCarthy and Rodgers reunited in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood after both have been associated with the Packers, and the Packers faced the Steelers in the Super Bowl. This is the big one Coach missed. We had the Super Bowl this year. I blew it. I absolutely blew it. It was the B script all along, but Coach always tells, like, this is something, if you're new to the channel, you'll find this out about Coach really quick. He never prays for a certain team to win. He just prays for the foresight and wisdom to get the picks right. And if I don't, because nobody's right 100% of the time, at least give me clarity on where I went wrong. And I can't think of a single time where I'm ever just like, what in the actual F happened? It's always like, I can't believe I missed that. Right? So in this one, and it's always got to be something that can be easily explained to you. You can think through yourself. You don't need to type it in some goofy calculator. We don't know who programmed it that translates stuff into words. Coach can just show you, like, isn't this the first thing you think of? Blah, blah. If not, tell me what you think of, So Kirk Cousins curse, right? So any team that loses to Kirk Cousins in the regular season can't win the Super Bowl. What do you know? Seahawks beat Kirk Cousins. Patriots beat Kirk Cousins. Rams lost to Kirk Cousins. So right there, we had it because the Broncos had the Bills curse on them. Any team that beats the Bills loses in the next round. So you knew for sure, at least by that point, it was Patriots, Seahawks. That's another reason like Coach never feels bad because he knows he always gives you enough. And he doesn't tell you to take everything he says as gospel truth. Your best bet is to try to think that one step deeper. You always want to start with what Coach is giving you because he's busting his ass and he's just like an embarrassment of riches. It's by far the best evidence that all sports leagues are scripted is my channel. It's not even close, right? So, like, of course you want to listen to what I have to say, but it doesn't mean I'm going to be right all the time, right? I'm just giving you my best opinion, especially because, to be honest, like, it's not like I love these games. They're all rigged and stuff. They're annoying, right? I got to try to put my emotions aside and get invested and feel it. And that's what Coach is telling you he did here. He got a bit deeper, and these are like the picks he's really feeling, right? And I did feel Rams over Patriots a lot more than I could feel Seahawks over Patriots. But spoiler there, me and Ricky Bird, we actually both are going Patriots, and that surprised me very much because I was saying I was going Patriots the whole time, but he was sold it was going to be the Seahawks. And then this morning I called him, and he said the NFC Championship was just too much of a joke. You know, they had to rely on 2 special teams mess-ups on the Rams, and they had that stupid taunting penalty. That's a heel move if I've ever seen it, right? So that's why as soon as he said, I was like, oh, yeah, you're so right. I feel so good about, the Patriots doing it. And I could be wrong there. I'm not overly invested in the result of the Super Bowl because there's not much money in it. Even if we would have had it from a mile away, it's the 1 versus the 2 seed, right? Not that great. It's not going to pay too great. Just another one of chalk, like how we had the first ever all 1 seed Final Four, right? The only bit of fun we had was the 8 seed over the 7 seed. Ohio State versus Notre Dame. We somehow called Ohio State being an 8 seed because we knew they were going to lose to Michigan thanks to Trevor. But yeah, we haven't had a lot of surprises in the world of sports. I mean, the Thunder were the best team the whole year. NHL, you had a repeat. The Chiefs were chasing a three-peat. I thought the Eagles were clearly the better team. I only gave the Chiefs a 3% chance to win that one. Plus, obviously, we had all the scripted reasons for the Eagles, but I just thought they were the better team. I thought they had the coach that was hungrier, right? So not going to spend too much time there. But the Kirk Cousins curse, that's the one that coach really wished he would have popped into his brain sooner, and that would have solved the NFC Championship for us. That's where coach went wrong. The Seahawks have also never lost an NFC Championship game, small sample size, but obviously looks good for them. And so they've won 9 games in a row, I think, right now. So they could definitely, drop the next one. Coach says, Cleasy, I believe, I'm sorry if I'm mixing people up, but our buddy that's entering boot camp, who called the Seahawks Pats, I think he thought the Seahawks were going to beat the Pats. So he says, the Patriots started the Seeing Ghost meme. I really shouldn't even be getting into this because we're going to spend at least an hour episode itself on the Super Bowl. We should kind of just breeze through this, and I kind of already solved the NFC Championship. But I'm just telling you, I don't entirely trust Darnold. If there is another side to him, that's not the type of guy you want in the Super Bowl. It could always come out, and this is the guy that seemingly it should come out against, and the media has selective memory right now. They're all saying the Rams were the only team that Sam struggled against. The Patriots are no problem somehow. So that's super suspicious to me, if Cleasy's right, because I don't watch a ton of Patriots. I don't know about the Sam Darnold thing he's talking about. I got to take him at his word. I've tried to look into it, but I can't get anything to pop up. But like I said, I'll find something because we're going to do a big episode on it. But, I just don't trust Sam Darnold that much. He's already got the Super Bowl loser's curse. It feels weird to get Drake May a Super Bowl loser's curse, right? So, and Vrabel, he's boring. He's not going to take any big risks. The Seahawks seem like they'll beat themselves. The Niners stadium, hella cursed. The Seahawks routed the Niners. There's no way San Fran wants to see the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. Basically, the turf is they got that power plant, and they say they turn up the voltage, so now everybody gets these lower body injuries, like McCaffrey, both of his Achilles are messed up, etc., right? So the Seahawks running back Kenneth Walker, right? And coach thinks Jimmy Kenneth Johnson is in for a bad spell at the Coke Call 600. Well, Kenneth Walker is coach's pick to go down because he missed a whole season year before last with an ankle thing. So I think that gives the Seahawks perfect excuse. He messed his ankle up. He misses a whole year, or maybe that's just it for him. I don't think the league falls apart if Kenneth Walker the third or whatever isn't around anymore. But it gives the Seahawks a reason to be bad. So that's coach's take there. So coach is looking into Mo Cheeks just because it's Iverson's favorite player. So coach has read an ungodly amount of books in the past year. So I might as well make you suffer through and read them all to you. Right, so this is the list. Curses, why Cleveland sports fans deserve to be miserable. A lifetime of tough luck, bad breaks, goofs, gaffes, and blunders. Fearless, how an underdog becomes a champion. Doug Peterson. Beauty at short, Dave Bancroft, the most unlikely Hall of Famer in his wild times in baseball's first century. Things I've learned from watching the Browns. Weird moments in Cleveland sports, bottle gates, bed bugs and bearing the pennant, and more. False start, how the new Browns were set up to fail. Johnny Gaudreau, hockey superstar. I should barely count that one. That one was like super thin. It was a huge disappointment that I paid for that. The loneliest Lions fan, 60 years of a fan's frustration. Hidden history of Cleveland sports. The game, the Michigan-Ohio State football rivalry. Cleveland Browns history. The autobiography of Brutus Buckeye, as told by his parents, Sari Lanyon and Ray Borkus. That one was also pretty short. So you think you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, stars, stats, records, and memories for true diehards. Grover Cleveland Alexander, baseball legend. Carson Wentz, soaring with Eagles. Birds of Prey, the story of the Philadelphia Eagles. Faith, brotherhood, and a Super Bowl victory. Numbelievable, the dramatic stories behind the most memorable numbers in sports history. Sacred Hoops, spiritual lessons at a hardwood warrior. Phil Jackson, I forgot I read that one. Hoop Atlas, remapping the remarkable transformation of the modern NBA. Pit Road, pets, NASCAR stars and their pets. The good, the bad, and the ugly, heart-pounding, jaw-dropping, and gut-wrenching moments from Philadelphia Eagles history. That's my team. History, science, and fun behind sports teams' names. Swagger, Super Bowls, brass balls, and fast football. Jimmy Johnson. Banana Ball, the unbelievably true story of the Savannah Bananas. No Time Like the Future, an optimist considers mortality. Dale Jr., Out of the Shadow of Greatness. I'm Your Huckleberry, Val Kilmer. Tales from the Toronto Maple Leafs locker room. Tales from the Cleveland Browns sideline. Racing to the Finish, My Story, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Arnold Rothstein and the 1919 Black Sox, the history and legacy of the most notorious scandal in American sports. Richard Petty, the life and legacy of the king of NASCAR. The ghosts of NASCAR, the Harlan boys in the first Daytona 500. I have horrible handwriting, so give me a break on some of these. Jinxed, baseball superstitions from around the major leagues. That was a letdown. Football for a Buck, the crazy rise and crazier demise of the United States Football League. Underdogs, the Philadelphia Eagles. Emotional road to Super Bowl victory? Yep. Asterisk, Red Sox 2086. I read that whole book on this channel. Brady versus Manning, the untold story of the rivalry that transformed the NFL. Jim Brown, Last Man Standing. True facts that sound like bullshit. Sports, 500 game-changing facts from out of left field. Hail Mary, the rise and fall, the National Women's Football League. Did you even know there was one? I didn't. Watch My Smoke, Eric Dickerson. Buffalo, home of the Braves. I may be wrong, but I doubt it, Charles Barkley. And 2 more pages here that it's just too small to try to figure. Like, it's going to be a huge waste of time and take too long to try to read them all off. Right, so we're looking at like at least 100 books in like a year alone. Coach is literally going broke. Right, look, I'm going to show you just all the ones I haven't read yet. These are all the books Coach still needs to read. Right, none of these were on that list. So we got a lot to do. Coach is working extremely hard, pretty much constantly. I was up till 5:30 a.m. as per usual, coming up with all these picks, sleep, wake up sometime around 10, 11, get right back to it. Right, so let's get back on track. Coach just wanted to catch everybody up and let him know he is legit. It's an emotional road, right? So gambling in itself, there's always ups and downs. Coach's strategy, bet incredibly small. I like 50-cent bets myself. There's some apps. I can't think of the one right off, but I'll remember later. I'm going to say DraftKings. I think DraftKings lets you go as low as like 10 cents, right? So that's like 10 bets for $1. And at the odds Coach gets, you can make an insane amount if you're right one time, right? So Coach says bet so little that you assume you're going to be wrong and you won't miss it if you are, but if you are right, it's literally life-changing, right? So that's Coach's system, and Coach doesn't win anything if you don't, because you know everything he's betting. It's actually way more likely you would win something and Coach wouldn't, because you might think that one step deeper, as Coach explained after seeing all his research. But if you do think that one step deeper, please be like Cleasy and leave your matchup prediction in the comments so Coach at least doesn't feel like he completely wasted his time. Right, so way to save the season there. And let's see. Of course, I mean, that was one we considered the whole time, but you had a narrative for it. It was just, for us, it was just Super Bowl revenge, which was boring. By us, I mean me and Ricky. Let's see. I don't care too much about Mo Cheeks. The problem is I did like a lot of this stuff, and my phone's been failing, right, because of the storage situation. So Moses Malone to the Bullets. This is the second phone Coach has jammed full since doing this stuff, by the way. Moses Malone to the Bullets. This is like the worst trade the Sixers have ever made. This is what started the curse. I thought it was interesting that like the guy he was traded for made a brief comeback in the 92 season, or maybe Malone did. It's kind of weirdly worded there. I'm not sure which one did. But someone involved in Malone's trade made a comeback in the 92 season. That could be a 26 for us. So I thought it was funny. If you bet $67, Coach says don't. But if you bet $67 on the Sixers to beat the Clippers, it's $167,567 payout. Coach says that's way too much. That was literally just because I thought it was a funny number, and I actually just meant to show that to my friend. Just slide the period over a few and pretend Coach said $6.70, and that's more practical. So Paul George, dude drilled 9 threes last night, went absolutely bananas, crushed the Bucks. We like that. Thought it was interesting. You know, we had George Niang. They both were Pacers. So from George Niang to Paul George, George McGuet, right? G-Wagon. That makes Coach think of Corey Maggette. We'll get there in a second. But, you know, Warriors and Sixers. This was really interesting to me. Okay, so he did something with Will Blaylock, and then immediately it says his squad won the 2011 Nike Peach Jam, while Mookie Blaylock was the name of Pearl Jam. So the fact they put Blaylock and P Jam that close together, Coach says there's no way that's an accident. I don't know exactly what it means, but I'm saying that's some sort of nod to Pearl Jam for sure. And, you know, the Seattle Supersonics just won, so that could be good for us. He had his career high against the Clippers. I thought that was funny. Signed with the Cavs on July 6th. That's a 76. Let's see. So here's Corey Antoine Maggette, like Antoine Walker. It's probably who that is. So Maggette, Clipper. I think coach for the Clippers, right? Analyst. So he's an analyst for the Clippers with prime ticket. I thought that was interesting. Drafted by the Supersonics, right? So gives us the Thunder thing. You know, he seems like a nice tie-in here. He had an Maggettios program. And Driving Me Wild, of course. Coach likes Wild Thing, Major League. We think the Indians might be good for it when they change their name back. Coach is going to get into the World Series pick. Spoiler alert, no Indians, like no Guardians, right? They got to change their name. But additional spoiler alert, as soon as the Super Bowl is over, Coach is going Lions over Browns. I do not care at all. That is 100% the best Super Bowl ever, and it's all set up, right? So Coach is going to run that one more time. Everybody involved will probably be too old if it doesn't happen, at least in the next 2 years. And I'm thinking this is the year to do it. So Lions over Browns on a 2-leg with Sixers over Clippers should be like $1 bajillion for 2 cents. So that's how I plan to retire. Now, let's see, I'm missing anything here. Thought searching. Oh, he was born in 79. You know, it's a 76. Jimmy Maggette, right? You know, Jimmy Butler just blew his stuff. Coach thinks Jimmy Johnson's going to crash. I like this. Moses Malone's, his home court, basically. Giant upgrade with pickleball courts and everything. They dropped $700,000 into it. It looks awesome. I would be all over that court. The guy involved was named Allen, and they said brand new courts, right? So it's like Elton Brand and Allen Iverson. Of course, Allen Iverson beat Ray Allen. They were rivals in the Big East, and Bucks versus Sixers. Let's see. Prince George, right? We got our George. Bona. Right, so the Sixers have a player named Bona. Apparently that's some sort of brand. And they have a partnership with Orange. I made Coach think of Orange Julius. There's a Lindell that's like Chuck Liddell. It's the Iceman. Chuck like Bubba Chuck. Iceman Gervin's team was in there. Val Kilmer was the Iceman. But here's your boy. Dude, his fucking name is Chuck. Boy, did they hide that. These sneaky little bastards. Adam Bona Okoro. Ikechukwu. Stanley Okoro. Ikechukwu? I can't believe they snuck Chuck in there. So this dude better not get traded. So Nigerian, he played soccer and switched up, so he's got the soccer background like Embiid, but Embiid also has a volleyball background. I'm so excited. His name's Chuck. His team lost 79-76. That's 76 flip both ways. There's another. Oh yeah, this is Jimmy Butler. So. Sorry, this one hurts to say. Oh, God. Could the Sixers trade Tyrese Maxey for Steph Curry? To coach, it makes perfect sense. They shorten their window to get the last little bit out of Steph Curry at the end of Embiid's career. It explains the back-to-back with nobody questioning it. Their odds immediately shoot down. They're not going to pay you shit because Steph's in town. It still makes Embiid important, but like he doesn't get all the credit. Like that's clearly his Robin, right? But he's more in the prime. And Edgecombe and George together, are a good 3-4 punch. But boy, would that suck. But that's like exactly why I think they do it. This is the type of ruthless, cold, championship-making move. Like, for a fact if you don't fucking win, you're going to regret this bad. Because Maxey is that guy. And the Warriors are going to be happy to take him. But the fans instantly don't like it. We get 2 rings, and then we're just bad for a long time. Iverson, once again, not getting the ring because Maxey's probably Iverson. But, like I said, I would love for there to be any other way. But this is the one that makes the most sense. I don't think Maxey's any sort of curse. They don't have to get rid of him. I love the guy. But I can't explain the Sixers not winning again for a while. There's nothing saying that they don't win again for a while other than I've been a lifelong Sixers fan, and it's hard to believe we're getting much more than a repeat. Like, I think a repeat and then a nice long curse sounds just about right to, 1967 or something. So that's just Coach's thoughts. Here's your big 3 as of now, right? What they did last night. George, 9 of 15 from 3. 32 points. Embiid, 29 with 9 boards. Maxey, 22 with 9 assists, right? You got, basically 3 guys that can score 30 at least at any time. So number 1 seed, right? Definitely not a huge guarantee, especially from the NFC. There's only been a few times since 2000 that the 1 seed is won, but one of them was the Seahawks, and the only other was the Eagles. I believe I'm missing another one. Oh, and the Saints. Right, so the Saints did it over Peyton Manning, but they came back and lost it again, right? So, like if you see the Eagles have lost way more than they won. They lost 4, and then won once as the 1 seed. The Seahawks have lost twice and won it once as a 1 seed. So I'm thinking that's another strike against them, right? You see teams like the Packers that have lost all 3 times. Winning 2 out of 3 seems really tough to do. Falcons lost it both times. Just saying. So coach still taking the Pats. So, oh, fuck. I didn't mean to ruin that for you. Pretend you didn't see that. Make sure it's at the end at least. Okay, so Coach loves this. Look, the Browns, made a conference championship not as long ago as you probably think, 1990. But no team has had a longer drought. Lions on the opposite end of that. They've made it just a couple years ago. That feels perfect when we're in a season where, the Seahawks were just a few years removed in the Patriots. So the recording just stopped because my phone slammed full, but let's get right back on it. Coach decided to actually add more slides. So this is going to be the extended version. None of the first stuff here was intended to be in, but Sam Darnold cashing in on the Seahawks Super Bowl run, so $3 million in incentives. Seems like if he goes down, you got 3 million reasons not to feel too bad for him. They got Lori Beth Denberg here, right, from all that. So apparently when you age, you lose your eyes pretty much almost entirely. So looks like some one eye symbolism going on to me. You can really only make it like the one distinct. The other's just very creepy. Here's Puka Takua looking like Kamala Harris. So that was the Rams are cooked the moment Puka Nakua. Coach says they're cooked the second they lost to Kirk Cousins, but I blew that one. Post Malone, right? So Malone, like Moses Malone, his first hit single is White Iverson, debut single, I should say. And, Post, that makes Coach think of the cereal that's based out of Michigan, Battle Creek. And, Eminem raps about Post Toasties. He's from Michigan. I had never heard of Post Toasties apart from that Eminem bar, to be honest with you. Let's see. He's from Syracuse, like our Syracuse Nationals. Isn't that something, our 76ers? So, yeah, there's the White Iverson thing. So it was rumored that was about Karl Malone. He says he used a rap name generator to get Malone. So, of course, the other Malone we already know would be Moses. And he's rapping about Iverson, so I'm going to guess it's that one. He just looks like an AI-generated avatar. Like there's no way that's a real person. It's doing the one eye thing, too. So Malone was on the Levi Jeans song off of Beyonce's Cowboy Carter. So we had Jalen Carter in the Super Bowl last year. Levi Stadium's hosting the Super Bowl this year. 167 first week ads. Something to do with 97 here too, which is also a 76. It was 67th annual Grammy Awards song. It was nominated for Best Pop Duo. What do you know? Apparently, Levi's was one of the only teams to support, or one of the only brands to support Destiny's Child early on. Kind of over him. Has at least 78 tattoos. I'm guessing 79 or 97. Probably has 79 now. He's going to go to 97 when it's all said and done. So he was in Happy Gilmore too. So Coach was thinking about Steph Curry. We had Seth Curry on the Sixers. We also had Vinny Curry. Vinny, that's like Vincent Papali, who is the hell do they call it? Invincible, right? That Eagles Mark Wahlberg movie, right? So Vince Papali, Vince Curry, Steph Curry, you get it. Coach was also thinking, you got like Bill Simmons and Ben Simmons. Bill Simmons, famous Celtics fan. Ben Simmons, famous Sixers bust. Bill Simmons really wanted Ben Simmons on the Celtics. But, of course, if you drop the Ben and Bill, right, and so like I said, the one's Ben, and then you got Bill Simmons, right? Of course, you also got Russell Simmons, which if you combine, you'd get Bill Russell. So I just thought that was weird. So he's got a 97 in there for the 76. Marshall. It's not that exciting, just throwing it out there. You don't see a lot of Marshalls. We've got the Eagles involved with the Lions, who of course have Marshall Mathers. Curry signed with the Jets, officially retired with the Eagles. Here's Vince Papali, 79 years old. He's probably going down. Of course, he was with the team in 76. Why wouldn't he be? You also got famous Eagle, Troy Vincent. Part of their elite secondary. I don't think I have a lot of interesting stuff on him. The good stuff's coming up. I'm saving it all, I promise. Like I said, I decided to make this one longer because why not? But we're definitely getting some crazy. What was the Hand of God? Hand of God game. That reminds me of Maradona. I wonder what that's about. Nothing too exciting. So, I didn't think about that. Okay. So Seattle being in the Super Bowl could be a nod to when the Steelers rode the bus to Detroit. Right, so that could be a clue. The lines are on. This is back where we were. Let me get back. Fighting to sneeze real hard. Okay, here we go. So, Mahomes obviously thinks it's ridiculous that he doesn't even understand how Belichick could get snubbed. LeBron James saying there's no way that's possible. J.J. Watt says he can't even possibly be reading it right. Ryan Clark says if Belichick's not a Hall of Famer, nobody is, obviously. So, we had a lot of heat for Buffalo Bills. Coach didn't buy any of it because it's the Bills, but that doesn't mean he didn't buy that there might be some heat in Buffalo. He just thought it was weird. People aren't thinking it through enough to realize, that Buffalo Bill put it in Joe Dirt's butthole and is the Silence of the Lambs killer. Like, that's just not going to work out. But I'm thinking, so the Sabres have never won. And the Indians are rocking a super long drought. Both Cleveland and Buffalo are two cursed towns. Both, two sport cursed towns, right? Both in Cleveland, both the baseball and football team are a joke. Basketball team, not so much anymore. And then in Buffalo, the Bills and Sabres, both never doing anything. But you could still have them being a joke just with football. So Coach says, the Bills have already lost a bunch of Super Bowls. The Browns have never lost a Super Bowl. Have them show up and lose it. Still gets them over a little bit, but you can still make fun of them for being chokers. But they get to end their Indians curse at some point. Like I said, they got to change the name back. I don't know when they're going to do that. But when they change the name back, they should be good for it. And they're both getting new stadiums, the Bills and Browns. So, like, on the Bills' end, it would be hilarious for the Bills to have just set the record for the team that won the most division titles in a row without appearing in a Super Bowl to just completely choke out against the Broncos with a chance to win it, right? Like, it's not even like there was anything you could think to build towards. Like, they had the chance and they just didn't make the throw. It's not like anything else happened, right? So they're just toast. And for the Sabres to show up out of nowhere, basically, and when it would be a good sign. Coach is a big fan of firing your coach midseason. He wanted Stefanski gone. He thought if Belichick came in, he could have saved it. And coach watched his Penguins fire their coach and have the interim coach, Dan Bylsma, take over and win the Stanley Cup. So I thought that was very interesting. That'll circle back. So I don't know exactly what this means, but someone says the Sabres are doing well right now because Pegula took the Eye of Sauron off them and put it on the Bills. And they said McDermott died for this, right? So the Bills, they wait to fire their coach after the season, the Sabres being proactive, right? And, apparently dodged some sort of curse. There's this really strange show that's like a drama about a gay couple that plays hockey, and, it's real gay. But they shit all over the Sabres and Buffalo, right? They made fun of the team and the city. They said they're talking about the Sabres, and they're like, "Oh, Buffalo sucks." Yeah, the team does too, right? So so shitting on both of them. And since then, they've been 9-1, and that show's called Heated Rivalry. Gosh, what an awful name. So, Coach was thinking they might be on collision course with the Avalanche. They had the Avalanche beat the Sabres 6-5 in overtime after the Sabres had a little lead recently. So, they could be setting that up. If the Sabres win their next matchup against the Avalanche, they'll be 67-76. Looking at it, this was hard to find. I was really pumped when I found this. I thought they just didn't have much history, but it said they do have bad blood. I was like, nice. Okay, so apparently they do have some bad blood. Dates back to 79. It's got something to do with the Quebec Nordiques. This wasn't the most riveting article. At least gives us something. Okay, so the Avs have won 3 Stanley Cups since beating the Sabres 5-4 in the team's first ever matchup, but the Sabres are one of only a handful of franchises yet to win a cup. Of course, there's other teams to keep an eye on too, like maybe the Lightning do something because of the Thunder, maybe the Hurricanes do something because of the Miami Hurricanes, right? But Coach is taking Sabres, and my backup pick is for them to beat the Avalanche. That one's even better. Coming up. So let's see. So, there was a highly controversial goal when they lost the Stanley Cup to the Dallas Stars by Brett Hull. And let's see. They had the first ever black hockey player, Valmore Curtis James. Coach is a big fan of calling people black, not African American. African American is trash. Unless you're actually from freaking Africa, like a first generation, or like your parents were or something, don't just be like, oh, I guess my grandpappy was a slave and they told me they ripped me from Africa. You were probably here the whole time, bro. You're just an American and you're just black. It's not that big of a deal. You're just going to claim a whole continent? That's like the Arizona Cardinals. How's that working out for them? Right, so Coach won't call anybody African American. At least tell me the fucking country in Africa to say. I'll say Ethiopian American or whatever the hell you want. All right, but don't give me that shit. African American. It's some garbage. I'm from Haiti. I'm African American. Okay, retard. Sorry, Coach probably can get a strike now. Now, let's see. But anyways, the Sabres had Valmore Curtis James, so it's like Val Kilmer, right? He died. Curtis, that's kind of like Kurt Warner. Kind of like Kurt Cobain, the Supersonics one. James, of course, we know a bunch of James. Keep in mind on that James coming into play later on Coach's craziest pick, though. It's going to be being out of nowhere one kind of. So Val James is 68, and he retired from the NHL or from pro hockey in 86, like Major League Hockey in 86. So he might be set to bite the bullet. He was also a Maple Leaf. They say he's forgotten. He's not bitter about the abuse. The Sabres have a number 1 overall pick, which you would expect for a team that's so bad, but there's only so many number 1 overall picks to go around. Their guy's been in the league 8 years. He's probably right around the prime of his career, and he's got a cool name, Rasmus Dahlin. All right, so, guess we're just going straight to it. So Coach is going to let you, he's going to set the tone here. Coach played soccer pretty seriously in high school for a few years on a lot of different teams. And it was never his favorite sport, but he did like it. And it was mostly teams would tell him they needed him, and Coach was a sucker for being needed, right? So Coach was around a lot of guys who really liked the World Cup. Coach could never get into MLS or Premier League or honestly anything like that, but I'd get down for the World Cup once every 4 years, pay attention to the group qualifying and stuff, and get tore down at some frat house or whatever while we all root for the USA while they lose to England or whatever dumb shit, right? So or Ghana, right? So Coach is a big fan of the World Cup, but he always watches as a homer, just rooting for the US. And, they never made it very far. But when he was at Lafayette College, it just happened to be, and it's a very weird coincidence, it just happened to be This little 3-week window I was taking a course there in the summer overlapped with the World Cup, and this school like leaned into it because it had like students from like the United Nations school all over the world. I had classmates from Bermuda, all sorts of weird places, right? So they actually would have TVs like everywhere pretty much, and it's like during that little period there was a lot more, like they pretty much, if it was a big game, they weren't going to make you miss it, right? Like, in your classes are usually like a billion hours long, but this is like the only time I ever went to the school for these classes to where like they just kind of let you do whatever because of the World Cup. So it was the year that Italy, like they had that Zidane headbutt and stuff. So that was like the first time Coach watched a full men's World Cup, and before that he had watched the like Mia Hamm World Cup for the women's, and some earlier Landon Donovan stuff, I want to say. I feel like I'm forgetting someone else too. But, Coach was a big fan of like the 2010 team with like Clint Dempsey and, oh gosh, I can't remember Charlie Daniels, who got injured, Tim Howard, right? But Coach isn't planning on staying in the U.S. this year, but Coach just wants to say he gets really into the World Cup. He wanted the team he could really believe in, and boy, he knew immediately when he saw it who it was going to be. And they've expanded to 48 teams this year. Boy, do we have our work cut out. If Coach is right on this one, I really want to hear it. This is every bit as impressive, if not more so, than picking the NCAA men's tournament winner, right? Because even though they have 68 teams, they have 20 more teams. It happens every year. So you get more chances. You don't get a lot of chances to get a World Cup, right? And they just bumped it up from 32 to 48. So they're really making it tough on Coach. He's got like a 1 in 50 chance, okay? And he's going to read off the teams. This is from favorite to long shot. Spain, England, France, Brazil, Argentina, Portugal, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, Italy, Belgium, Colombia, Morocco, Uruguay, Mexico, United States, Ecuador, Croatia, Japan, Senegal, Switzerland, Denmark, Austria, Paraguay, Turkey, Canada, Scotland, Sweden, Ivory Coast, Egypt, Poland, Ghana, Algeria, Wales, Ukraine, South Korea, Bolivia, Tunisia, Australia, Czechia, Iran, Slovakia, Democratic Republic of Congo, Romania, South Africa, Qatar, Ireland, Saudi Arabia, Panama, New Zealand, Kosovo, Albania, Jamaica, Iraq, Bosnia-Herzegovina, North Macedonia, Cape Verde, Curacao, Uzbekistan, Northern Ireland, Jordan, Suriname, and Haiti, right? So I'm sure I butchered some of those. But hopefully you had time looking over that to make your pick. I'm sure a lot of people flocked to Ukraine. They made my ears perk up too. But Coach knew immediately when he saw he is going to be rolling with Egypt hard. I feel awesome about this pick. Sincerely, I feel really good about that Sabres pick too. But they tie in and you'll see. Right? So one, what's getting Coach onto Egypt? Well, we saw that weird Eye of Sauron thing that seemed Egyptian. Kat told Coach that the Sixers' eye in their Foot Locker logo looks Egyptian. The Lions, who we have winning the Super Bowl, drafted the first Egyptian NFL player ever. They also have Amon-Ra St. Brown. You could argue their mascot looks like a sphinx. And there's a player named Pharaoh Brown who is from Cleveland. Okay? Now, I actually just had more and somehow forgot it. Oh, also, Happy Gilmore 2 came out. And if you remember in the first one, his mom leaves his dad for Egypt because there's not a hockey rink for 1,500 miles. Right? So, Egypt's squad has outstanding talent. Coach wants to put this out here right away. This is a long shot. You saw the odds, okay? But these are Coach's boys. He's telling you he knows ball. These are some classy lads, okay? Believe that. These boys have finesse. They have talent. They have skill. They have whatever you want, I promise you, we've got a top 7 player in the world. I don't think we're weak at any position. This is a team that some have categorized as out for revenge, okay? But coach isn't going to sugarcoat it. They've never even won a game in the World Cup, okay? We're up against it. Why does coach like this team? Well, there's a lot more to soccer than the World Cup, and this is the winningest team in Africa's history. They've won like the African Championship more times than any other team with 7, okay? They were the first team out of Africa to ever qualify for the World Cup. They put Africa on the map. They weren't always eligible for a World Cup in situations that had nothing to do with skill. Like there was like political situations, like in 1962, they withdrew. That could be a 26 flip, right? And so they're top 7 player in the world. They're known as the Pharaohs. And his nickname is the Pharaoh or the Egyptian King. He's got some other nicknames as well. One of their fight songs, they changed the words to a song by the band James, if you remember from the 90s, right? So there's James tying in for us, like the Valmore James with the Sabres. Coach found something crazy. I'm spoiling a lot of slides. Who would you think just won the World Cup in saber fencing? Freaking Egypt, dude. And they have a player on their team named Saber when everybody else is like Ahmed and Muhammad. They got a player named Saber, and what do you know? They had a Saber on one of the other World Cup teams. This team's only been in 3. So, coach also knows nothing's a gimme in the World Cup. And everything is very, very hard-earned. Teams get disappointed way more often than you would expect. It's probably the most brutal spectacle in sports, right? You're going to see all the emotions. This is a team, like I said, they've never even won a game. Even making it out of the group would be quite an accomplishment. But coach says they're going all the way, and the group looks good, okay? So what you really want to avoid is something like a group of death. You saw those names. Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Spain, Germany, right? There's so many teams that could be in your group. But we managed to draw Belgium, who is tough, but I do want to point out it's interesting, they speak Dutch. We had, Rick Smith's team, the Flying Dutchman, in the NBA Finals, the Pacers. I had a bunch of other Dutch stuff I can't remember, right? But we know that was good for us. So that's the team we really got to worry about there. But 2 get past, right? So who's the other team? If it's us and Belgium, who are the 2 we got to get past? Iran and New Zealand. Now, like I said, coach isn't calling anything a cakewalk, especially when we're ranked like 35th in the world. But those teams are not highly respected. They don't have great histories. Belgium is terrifying. I'm totally cool with losing that game. I even lose that game by a few goals. But I want straight up dubs over Iran and New Zealand, right? They might somehow be able to mess around with a tie, but a win-loss and a tie in that group, that could be rough. I don't want to leave anybody else's hands. But I could see us tying on record with possibly even the other 2 teams. But even though we lose by a couple to Belgium just destroys the others, and the goal differential is just too bad. Right? So there's a lot of scenarios. We just got to survive. Group's just about getting into the actual little single elimination format. So you get 3 games. You play everybody in your group. Best record combined with goal differential advances. Half the field eliminated right there. So we're trying to make it through with 1 team. We will be shocked if Belgium doesn't make it, but nothing's a gimme. I could see us in Iran. Seeing us in New Zealand's a little bit tougher, right? But I don't know. I would have to see how they're like doing the games. I feel like they're saving so with the Iran one, right? So Iran versus Egypt, they're holding that match in Seattle, Washington, and they've dubbed it the Pride match. We're talking about countries that have the death penalty for being gay. Like, are you serious? You know what I mean? Don't forget Trump, huge ban on Muslims, right? This is a team that leans heavily into their Muslim culture. Their chant is like, if he's good enough for you, he's good enough for me. If he scores a few more, I'll be Muslim too. Like, it doesn't even have to, oh yeah, if he scores a few, I'll be Muslim too, right? Like, so like, you know, Trump's Muslim ban just happened to miss Egypt. It did hit other countries in Africa, right? So luckily we're not on the shithole list despite having the leader of the 9/11 hijackers on the list. And don't forget like the Gaddafi stuff, you know, so Egypt's been like big in the news for a while. And, you know, of course they got a lot of stuff like the pyramids and stuff that are on our dollar bills, you know, and that are obviously big symbols for them for whatever reason. Now, let's see. So, never won a match. Well, in 2018, their best player was injured. What do you expect? He still played well. This guy is a goal machine. He can't go 2 games in a row without scoring a goal. It's literally unbelievable when you look at his totals. We'll get more into it. Well, first of all, I'll tell you, all-time leading goal scorer in Liverpool's history. Do you like that? You think that's a real footballer? Right? So, dude is a monster. But he was injured, right? And they didn't qualify last time. You know, it's tough. You know, the whole process is tough. Even making the World Cup's not a gimme by any stretch. And it wasn't 48 teams back then. I'll bet they would have made it if it was. So, you know, that 2018 team was a disappointment. Don't make it last year. Well, you rewind just a little bit back. 2010, top 10 team in the world. Absolutely stacked all through the 2000s. If you have this cat on that team back then, they probably already have at least a couple wins. You know what I mean? So this is a team that's kind of always been in the conversation, but never taken seriously. And coach thinks they got a lot of stuff working for them. So, you know, I'm also going to watch Britain. I'm going to watch the U.S. And I'll probably keep an eye on the 2 Ireland teams because it's interesting. They're both in there. And Ukraine. But I'm not too interested in anybody else. And I'm not calling anybody else winning it or making the finals. I want my Egyptians in there for sure, going all the way. Now, let's see. So, they've got 3 friendly matches leading up to the World Cup, right? So these games don't matter. They're for promotion, right? Who did we get? Spain, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia just like bought the PGA Tour. In Brazil and Spain, you know, you don't have to go back too many World Cups to find winners there. You know, so it's very nice we're not getting these awful, like, where's that again type teams, you know what I mean? These are teams you don't just know, you know the players, you know the history. Of course, a BS spam caller just ruined the video. So coach has to cut it together even more. It's going to be a 3-parter. So let's see. So yeah, Belgium, Iran, and New Zealand, like that's not terrifying, right? Imagine if that was Spain, Brazil, and Saudi Arabia. You kidding me? Like I said, this is what you want to see if you want your team to have a shot. I would never be saying we're somehow getting out of that other group. And we're probably going to have to go against those teams, right? But groups of death are called that for a reason. There's usually always a surprise one. This group just feels like Egypt is the surprise along with Belgium, who you expect. You know, and it's not even that big of a surprise when you really look at. Did it really just break my thing again? Oh, no, it's just telling me it's saved. I thought it stopped recording. I was going to be like, what in the world? Okay, so I told you about their 3 matches coming up and their opponents. So this is like ESPN ranking all the teams out of Africa. Now, it's interesting to point out that, you know, Cameroon has considered the best team, probably this millennium out of Africa. Well, they didn't even make the World Cup. There's a couple teams that were considered the class of Africa that didn't make the World Cup. We got 9 teams in there. So first ever qualification for Cape Verde. South Africa's in there after hosting in 2010. Ghana's in there. They gave the U.S. some problems not too long ago or beat them. Tunisia, Algeria, and we're ranked right there. Egypt, just 1 point better than Algeria. ESPN's not thinking too much of us. But why does it say? Considering that their success at a continental level, Egypt's World Cup pedigree is utterly underwhelming. So they're not built, like typically, as a team that can make a deep run because they've never won a game, right? But you always have a team that comes out of nowhere every once in a while. Now, and it's not like they've never made it, right? If it was their first appearance, I'd say no way, right? But this team seems ready for it. So no progress to the knockouts, not even a single victory to show for all their talent over the years. Now, let's see. Finally leave their mark. So the country's all-time leading scorer is their coach. We like that. And then ahead of us is the Ivory Coast, Senegal, and Morocco is considered significantly better. But what if Morocco doesn't advance out of group? What if they're in a group of death? Right? So we might catch another break there. And they sit 11th in the FIFA World Cup ranking. So it shows you, obviously there's 7 continents. You would want them to be ranked a little bit higher. But Africa's not a team that can't threaten teams, or isn't a continent that can't threaten teams from Europe and in the United States, especially, North America, especially when we've seen teams like Ghana give the U.S. such problems. So here's the pride match thing I was talking about. So, of course, controversy. Now, I like that our boy turned down a Player of the Game award because it was sponsored by Budweiser. These boys are hardcore. Now, let's see. So there's your 48 teams. Of course, coach tells you how much you like 48. What's going on here? Is that a video? It keeps acting like it's switching to a video. It's throwing me off. So, comments here. So, yeah, they scored a lot, basically. So Nigeria was another really good team that lost on penalties. So that's really nice. So no Nigeria, no Cameroon is why coach thinks none of the African teams are in the top 10. And we're still in the better half of the 9. 4 isn't super inspiring, right? But it's just outside the top 3, and you saw how close 2, 3, and 4 were, right? All we got to do is scare. Teams are going to be nervous playing a team that's never done anything. You don't want to be that team that lets them make history. Of course, we say it's all fake, but I'm saying that's an excuse they can give them. So, let's see. Pride match. Yeah, there's your punishable by law in Egypt, death penalty in Iran. There's Trump with the Muslim stuff. Coach wants to say he doesn't even put ice in his bongs. Fuck ice. I think it's all fake, but if it's real, fuck him. Oh, yeah, so here's the Egyptian hijacker. September 1. He does it on September 11th, what do you know? In American, dude, Airlines Flight 11. So Flight 11 for 9/11. Dude's born on 9/1. That's awesome. Coach already showed you how 9/11's a palindrome. You just got to take the date, the planes, and the number of hijackers. If you write it backwards and just flip the 1 and the 2, and then that big long code, the whole thing's a palindrome. Let's see. Single deadliest crash. He came to Hamburg in 92. It's when he got radicalized, right? So that could be a 26 flip somehow. Here's the Lions player from Egypt that got drafted, born 7'9". That's 76. Love that he's from Anaheim. Jeez. Can't get better than that. Let's see. Coach has a lot more. We're just worried about Egypt now because the World Cup's such a big deal. So Coach got really excited, but we're also going to talk about, like Coach. So as far as like the Sabres, just flipping back real quick. Coach, oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Was it the Kraken? Wolves was, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. Anyway. So there's Pharaoh Brown. So we want him ending up. So he's been on Cleveland Browns twice. Pharaoh Brown on the Browns twice. Either third time's a charge or head over to the Lions to help out with Sam Laporta's injury and team up with Gronk and Brady. That's what Coach says. Also on the Patriots, Belichick's team, Miami. We know the connections there. A lot of these screenshots are kind of bummed because I told you a lot of it already. So Mohamed Salah is the guy, I'm telling you, he's like super good. They're top 10 player in the world. So first World Cup was 1934. I thought this was very interesting. Look, first Egyptian national team was constituted in 1920. First African team to compete in the Summer Olympics in Belgium. So I think they beat Belgium, actually. I think they come out of that round looking awesome. And, they lost to the Italians back then. That's a real team. You know what I mean? It's respectable. So, look at this other group. So, look at this other World Cup. They're with Ireland, England, and the Netherlands. That fucking sucks. There's no way you're getting out. Even if you somehow do better than Ireland, there's no way you're doing better than England and the Netherlands. They're just in there. So you're pretty much just trying to play spoiler for one of these teams, right? You're easily the fourth man out, even if you're one of the best Egypt teams ever. So that's what I'm saying. To just get Belgium and Iran, Saudi Arabia. So it could easily be Saudi Arabia and Belgium advancing. Easily. But Saudi Arabia is a lot less scary than England and the Netherlands or Ireland or something like that. That's for sure. So then this other one too, this is scarier. Saudi Arabia there again, but with Uruguay and Russia. Uruguay and Russia are better than, neither one of those teams are as good as Belgium probably. Russia's kind of close, or maybe Uruguay's kind of close. But they're both better than Iran and New Zealand, for sure. So once again, you're probably the fourth best team there. If you're lucky, that's why you've never won a game. You're getting bad draws. Gotta have a little bit of luck. So how have they gotten here so far? So this is qualifying and stuff. So they started out by beating the dopest Ethiopians 2-0, go and steal the diamonds from Sierra Leone, hold them 1-0. They starve the Ethiopians again 2-0. They tie Burkina 0-0. 3-0 rout of Djibouti, I guess. I don't know how it's pronounced. 1-0 win over Guinea-Bissau. 2-0 loss to Uzbekistan. 1-1 tie with Cape Verde. It looks like they lost in penalties. 1-1 tie with Kuwait. 1-1 tie with United Arab Emirates. And what was that Arab? Something backwards. Hopefully that pops into my head. My buddy told me something interesting. Egypt lost to Jordan 3-0. Then they turn around, beat Nigeria 2-1, beat Zimbabwe 2-1, beat South Africa 1-0, tie Angola 0-0, beat Benin 3-1, beat the Ivory Coast 3-2. That's a team that qualified. Lose to Senegal 1-0, lose penalties after 0-0 against Nigeria, who probably would have been the best African team in the cup, if you believe the comments, right? And, historically, they're pretty well rated in the FIFA games. And then, the friendlies coming up, right? Saudi Arabia, Spain, Brazil. And then they've got to play. So they're ending it with the pride match, right? So that's going to be the one with all the publicity, right? And that game's going to matter. So sadly, that means it's not going to be us coasting. I could see something like we beat the better team in Belgium, then tie New Zealand, while Iran ties Belgium and beats New Zealand. Right? Belgium has a letdown game, lets them tie. So basically, but Belgium, I don't know. It's tough not to give Belgium 2 wins. I just know that game's going to matter. I mean, there's so many different ways with the way the soccer math works, right? Like how it could be goal differential and stuff. Coach can need some time to think on that one. So they've got 2 Hamdis, but one's the first name, one's the last name, right? Of course, they got several Mohammeds. They got several Ahmeds, right? But Saber, right there. Okay, so I thought that was very interesting. So here's Mahmoud Saber, Abdel Mohsen Hassan. I don't know if there's anything interesting about him. I mean, he plays for the Pyramids, but, it's Egypt. You kind of expect that name. So yeah, all-time Liverpool scorer. Wait, what was that? Mears. Yeah. So Salah, that also makes me think of Greg Salas. He just did something. I can't remember. He was an Eagle before. So I love that he's born in 92. So that's a 26 flip. That's our Egyptian king here. This is the guy we're really counting on. He can't go down. Promise you nothing good happens without him. So he's the man. He's big over. If you put the Sixers to beat the Clippers on a slip with Egypt, 50 cents is $188,000. Are you kidding me? Why not? You can max out at $4. You're lucky if they take that. 1.5. You only need 2 things to go right. So now here, Sabres over Avalanche, 50 cents, $157,000. Sixers to beat Clippers with the Angels, 50 cents, $313,000. Sixers to beat Clippers with, spoiler alert, the Washington Nationals. Bet you didn't think about them. Here's the craziest part. Coach picked them before he made the Syracuse Nationals, Washington Nationals connection. You would have think that would have been the very first thing, but it was dead last. I was already sold because these boys were the Montreal Expos, which are named after like the 67 Expo. And there was a lot of other stuff to it than that. But I couldn't believe I already had them down. I was like, oh, the Net, that's right, our Sixers are the Nationals. Right, so literally there's no way I can change any of these picks. I just feel way too solid about them. These are my teams. The Angels, not like someone else could show up and beat the Nationals. I feel better about the Nationals losing the World Series than the Angels winning it. Right, the Nationals could lose to somebody else, but why not the Angels? Is how I feel. Right, so we got the Anaheim stuff. We've got a lot of other stuff with them. Let's see. So he's a Salah is a beast in FIFA, the video game, right? Whatever they call it these days. Sponsored by Adidas. So they call him the Pharaoh, and he's with Pharrell Williams. I thought that was interesting. Let's see. So, like, he's from, like, a poor area. He's helping, like, rebuild it. John Oliver did a huge fluff piece on him, so I'll get to that in a second. Actually, first, he stood up for the Palestinian Pele when he was, massacred or whatever you want to call it, martyred, right? So here's some graffiti of him. John Oliver ran a fluff piece saying that he's an even better footballer than he is a human being, or he's an even better human being than he is a footballer, and he's one of the best footballers in the world. So, he's been given exposure to the U.S. Population, right? Consumers, whatever. And, what was I say? So they call him the fourth pyramid. Here's the chant I told you about. If he scores another few, I'll be Muslim too. Oh, yeah, he was on the cover of... actually, not just the cover. He was Man of the Year for GQ Middle East. He's an advocate of women's equality. He says we need to change the way we treat women in our culture. There's a thing about John Oliver writing about him in Time. This dude's like big over. I guarantee you, if we were over on that side of the world, we'd know a lot more about him. Right? 7th ranked World Cup player in 2025. You want some of that? You sure your guy's better than this guy? My guy's got a golden foot. Okay? Given to players who stand out for their athletic achievements, both individual and team players. Right? So you can't just be good. You also have to be on a good team. And they have to like you. It's for your personality. You have to be at least 27 years old, and you only get one. He's got his, right? So if your guy doesn't have one of those, he's not in this conversation. So I don't care about that. Just want to show Pandas looking ridiculous. Minneapolis psyop. I got to have better stuff. Let's stick on sports. So here's Egypt's saber fencing World Cup title. Like, come on, what the hell? Seriously? What are the odds? You see how many people are in, or how many teams are in the soccer World Cup? How many think are in the fencing World Cup? Would you have really thought Egypt was going to do it? Unreal. Oh, coach is looking at Mia Farrow, right? Of course, because of Farrow. And so she's connected to Supergirl. They got a huge Supergirl movie coming out, considered a box office bomb. I think the new one looks good. Maybe Coach is crazy. I think that He-Man one looks good too. But, Mia, I guess that Farrow, you got the Woody Allen thing. We saw Woody Marks have a decent season for the Texans. Oh, Coach wants to talk. So I'm going to give you my final 4 picks right now. My final 4 picks, SMU has made 1 Final Four appearance. I got them going all the way to the finals. Okay? I got UNC in the Final Four. That's 2 ACC teams. That's the only 2 I'm taking, and only because SMU doesn't even feel like an ACC team. Other than that, we're going Nebraska. I'm taking going all the way against SMU. I can't remember who I got winning it, but I think SMU versus the Cornhuskers is a banger. The Cornhuskers are the biggest team to have never even won a tournament game, so that one's a huge stretch. Right, take that one with a grain of salt. But, Nebraska, big on in Coach's book. Wait, there's one team I'm forgetting, though. So I said UNC, SMU, Nebraska. And I'm thinking take your pick of Michigan or Michigan State. I think one of those 2 squeak in there. State usually makes more sense, but why not the OG Michigan? Right, so that's Coach's pick for Final Four. Right, it's definitely a bit out there. I doubt I'm exactly right. It's still way too early. Right, but on SMU, we got Jermaine O'Neal Jr. Right, so here's senior here, who was the youngest player to ever play an NBA game at the time. Multiple all-star. He was involved in the Malice at the Palace. Tyronn Lue out in Nebraska. I didn't realize he played for Nebraska. Of course, the Clippers coach. That makes a lot of sense for Nebraska making a deep run. We got the Iverson step over rematch, basically. Let's see, anything else? So, you'll see a lot of guys involved with the Clippers and the Rockets. Just remember they were both in San Diego. Here's our Expos. So they moved stadiums in 76. They're based after 67. Expo coach has told you DC takes their baseball very seriously. They had to go a long time without one. They actually won a World Series back in 2019. I didn't realize that, so that makes this pick way less exciting. But I think it's perfect that they lose and put over the Angels or someone else, right? But I feel really good about the Nationals making it there and losing. There's just a lot of stuff going on. Oh, they have I'll circle back to the other ones. So they got some weird relationship with the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays made it last year, so they could pop up this year. They had a huge drought of matchups until 97, which is 76 flip. Let's see. So, like, this team could have been in Buffalo. This team could have been in San Diego. They presented a bid in 67. They wanted it in 62. A lot of numbers we like. They could have been the St. Louis Browns, right? Hard to read because they're involved in so much. But, you know, not like any of it's bad. And then Shea. So there's another big one. I don't care about that. 62 nations were in the 67 World Expo. So that's a 26 for us. We love that. Here's like the weird habitat thing. So like it was at Habitat 67. The construction started 62 years ago. That's a 26 for us. You know, 64, that's when the Browns drought started. They say they've designed over 75 buildings. How many is it? 76? 79? 97? Here's a panoramic view. Oh, here we go. Robert Fletcher Shaw. Right, so you know all the times coaches brought up Shaw. So that's good. We like seeing that there involved with the expo itself. 16 February 6-2. That's a 2-6 flip. 67 made a companion of the Order of Canada, and their only son was killed in an airline crash. Coach says he might be doing a lot of aviation stuff, especially if the 9/11 stuff tracks with Egypt. That definitely could make sense. Something about 25 million tons. I guess it doesn't actually help us, though. But it does have Notre Dame involved. 167 million. Sorry, let's do it. Okay. Let's see. Something about the 76 Olympics. And don't forget, like, they'll change when the Olympics occur. Like, they'll change the cycles. So it's very interesting that they all seem to hit and flip because they cheat. It makes it really hard to predict things like the Olympics for out way harder than the like MLB or something, because all you got to really count for is strike years. So something about 67. There was a crash. In Battlestar Galactica, 1979, you know, so that's a 67 flip. Same with this post-apocalyptic film, Quintet. There's their World Series win. You see, let's see. Mascot Screech, so that's an eagle. So that's like, wait, so the Nationals actually play in DC? No. But yeah, so, you know, they got an eagle like the Eagles who just won. So coach has Angels to beat the Nationals. They're going off at 10,000 to 1, dude. You combine that with the Clippers, they will not let you. Nobody in the world has taken that action, even on a penny. You're still, even at a penny, you're going over. That's crazy. Or wait, at 10 cents you're going over. And nobody's going to let you take less than 10 cents because they're not going to pay more than 1.5 mil. So then, of course, Screech. That's like Dustin Neil Diamond. Wait. No fucking way did they pull that shit. It's Neil Diamond? How the fuck did we not catch that? They always just call him Dustin Diamond. So, Neil Diamond here. Screech Powers, like Kenny Powers. We had, you know, old Kermit. Call it. There's that stupid Fraggle. Patrick Mahomes. You know, who's played by Kenny Powers, Danny McBride. We had him in the Super Bowl last year. He's from San Jose. It could be the Sharks. You know, I'm not completely married to my pick. I thought this was interesting. This one's really hard to ignore, right? So, Good Morning Miss Bliss. So I'm like, Bliss Sports? Dave Bliss, what's he doing? I wonder if he's going to be involved in the championship. Oh, wait, he's on the Thunder? Well, that's good for him. So, yeah, he fucking won. So, we were right there. And I like they tell you that in his Smex tape that he had a stunt double with his likeness superimposed. So, just to show you it's all bullshit all the time. Everything's fake. I like he was in the gathering of the Juggalos, but then also wrestled against Doink the Clown. So, there's just something about the student clowns. Bronco, New York. What the hell is that place? I thought it was interesting. He's in Big Fat Liar with Paul Giamatti right before he's in Pauly Shore is Dead. So Paul Giamatti, Pauly Shore. Tom goes to the mayor, so Tom Brady goes to Drake Mayer. Both Patriots QBs, of course. Bob Odenkirk. We had Charlie Kirk die or get assassinated, whatever. Newfoundland screech, some sort of alcohol. Couldn't figure out a lot there. So this doesn't seem like a coincidence. They're talking about with this screech alcohol, me old cock, and the other screech is involved in porn. So coach just I guess I already did that. All right. So we did Final Four. We did World Cup. We did Stanley Cup, but I didn't tell you who else. Right? It wasn't the Kraken. Sabres. So I just took Sabres straight up there. But, my gosh. I know I had a better team here. Let me look real quick. NHL. Whoops. I don't forget, you also got to worry about like the Lightning, that sort of stuff. But Coach likes his... over here, right? Yeah, his Sabres here. Right? Red Wings scary, Lightning scary, Montreal scary, Boston scary. Florida Panthers probably aren't going to three-peat. Maple Leafs not doing so hot. Senators neither. Hurricanes scary, Penguins scary. Right? Like Flyers, right? There's a lot of teams here that should have some heat. But I'm taking the Bruins to get past all of them and matching up with... I'm thinking it's got to be the Kraken. Because I don't know how I didn't save it. Who's Dan Bilsma with? That's what we got to figure out. Yeah, I think he's with the Kraken right now. So playing career, Bilsma here. Coached the Penguins to a Stanley Cup after their coach got fired. He started in 92. That's a 26 flip. And he went from the Sabres to now the Kraken, right? Oh, they fired him. Oh, yeah, and they promoted Ron Francis, but that's another Penguin. So coach calls that a wash, right? And, that happened, this year before the season, so they'll always have to bring it up when they talk about any sort of run. Weirdly enough, Kraken first expansion team to, ever win their first playoff series against the red-hot Avalanche, right? So they could be a team that could knock that boogeyman Avalanche out. They talk about the President's Cup or President's Trophy, right? Curse. Usually a team with the best record doesn't win. And Kraken versus Sabres gives you a first-time winner no matter what. So coach likes that a lot.